Alright, boys and girls, we're going to see how this turns out. I'm driving in my van. It's a rattly, noisy piece of shit, so, which, I love her, but she is very noisy. It's hard to talk on even Bluetooth headsets out here. So, I want to do a podcast this morning over an article I read in the Times Herald last night. I don't have the article with me. It was on a sub-page, so something pulled off the AP wire, because it wasn't anything local, but it was in the state of New York. Some kid moved to Texas. He was born. It was boy sues New York State over birth certificate gender change. And I have no problem with people changing genders. I have no problem with people's sexual orientation. I have no problem with. I don't have a problem with anything that people really want to do, as long as they're not infringing on the rights of others, right? So, I mean, as long as you're not out there raping, murdering, killing, you know what I mean? I could care less if you smoke crack if you're not bothering anybody, you know what I mean? You're in the confines of your own home. Listen, it's when you start needing your next fix and you break into my house and kill me and my family to steal our jewelry to sell it to get your next score. That's where I have a problem. But anyways, no, I mean, but the way people go about things is what I have a problem with. What I have a problem with is, so this article talks about how the boy is suing the state of New York because now he is born a boy. He was either born a boy and wants to be a girl, or born a girl and wants to be a boy. What have you. Either way, his birth certificate is the only thing that is not reflected, right? Like his passport reflects his new gender. He's going through the change. I guess he's in Texas going through hormone therapy, and he's still he or she is still a minor, right? So the parents are suing on behalf of the child, and whatever. My issue is that they're suing the state of New York to change the birth certificate, right? If you're identifying now, if I identify now as a woman, right? And I haven't gone through any surgery or anything that would biologically make me a man, or make me a woman from a man, I'm still biologically a man. So my issue is that in a birth certificate is like a balance sheet in accounting. It is a statement, a snapshot in time. So to say the kid was born with black hair and blue eyes at birth and was a man, well, now that child identifies as a blonde-haired child with contacts that are green. You can't go back and change the birth certificate to reflect that the child was born with blonde hair when the child was actually born with black hair. Now that they identify, you know what I mean, update your profile picture, update your driver's license photo, update your passport, update all these different things that identify you as a blonde-haired, green-eyed child or brown-eyed child versus being a black-haired, blue-eyed child at birth. The birth certificate is a statement of time. Having your hair color changing is the same, should be considered the same as your gender changing to an extent, right? So, but you're not going to change the birth certificate because that is an actual factual thing that happened. You were born a boy and now you want to be a girl. You go through the procedure. So when you go to get your driver's license, you re-enroll in an educational system, you get health things done. Your birth certificate is going to say you were a boy. This little document that after surgery was performed gets associated with it that says now you are a girl, but you were born a boy. A doctor needs to know that crap because they start giving you different things that, hey, listen, we give this to you. You were biologically born a male. They can't change this, or that. So these chemicals are going to greatly affect you and not solve whatever problem you might have. So a lot of these different things are, making sure we're still recording. A lot of these different things are just bananas, right? You can't change. I'm not going to change my taxes because this year I'm reflected as, or you don't change the previous year's taxes because last year I was a construction worker. This year I'm a waiter. You know what I mean? You don't go change your taxes because of that. Those are a snapshot in time. Those are what you were that year, that time period, the year ending this time period. You know what I mean? All that stuff has a great, has a great effect on it. And you're not going to convince me that you should just willy-nilly be changing a factual document in time. This child was born a male, wants to be a female, and it might be reversed, but whatever, for all intents and purposes, is a male, wants to be a female. You change the you shouldn't change the birth certificate. You should take the birth certificate and the social security card and all that other stuff, and then when you get the surgery done, you update. You don't update the birth certificate, but you can update the file that the social security number that the child's reflected to, and say, listen, just so you know, here's our certificate from the doctor that the biologics have been changed for the most part on this child, and we want to make sure that you have that you're aware of it, so when she files a tax return, it shows up female, which I don't even think they ask for male, female on stuff like that anymore. But it's the same as if I were to ask, like, you know what, today and I was telling Miley this morning on the way to school, because she read the article too, and she thought it was just as lunacy as I did. You shouldn't be changing birth certificates. And I told her, I said, you know what, right now I am better represented by a person who was born on the 5th of March. My birthday's in April, but because I'm now reflected as a person who's born in the day of, the 5th of March, or let's say the 5th of May, just to make it easier, Cinco de Mayo, right? This way, if I change my birthday, I just go forward a month instead of saying that I was born 2 months earlier, right? Or a month earlier. No, see, that doesn't make sense, does it? No, but even though I could think that makes a drastic difference in my life, being a May baby at birth, I was reflected as an April baby, but I'm portrayed as a May baby. I want to go back and change my birth certificate so that I'm, you know what I mean? Because people say I have an old soul. Why can't I have why shouldn't I be entitled to being considered a 50-year-old man when I'm really only 30, right? Like, I'm 32 or 30. I'm about to be 32. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, why can't I be portrayed as a 20-year-older? You know what I mean? Change my birth certificate. If you can change one thing on your birth certificate, you should be able to change all of it. Especially if you're going into the hardcore data of it all. Like, this kid was born on this date. This kid was born a biological male. You change it later. It's like updating your address. Like, the parent's address is on a birth certificate too, but guess what? That shit changes. And, like, you don't change a birth certificate just to reflect the new mailing address of the sired parents, right? That's lunacy. That's why you keep it the same. At this date and time, these parents lived here, in this state, in this, you know what I mean, at this address, and they had a P.O. box, all that crap. It's left unupdated because they give you the ability to update it later with certain documentation, maybe a utility bill to prove that's where you live, and then it's reflected on your driver's license, and that's all they need. You take that doctor's note down there with your birth certificate to the driver's, the DMV, and they update it and say now this man's a chick. Like, that's it. But don't try to convince me that we can start changing birthdays and because that's not what they're fighting for. They're fighting for gender. Well, listen, I dye my hair. You know what I mean? Like, if it's a surgery that was done, or you know what I mean, you represent as one. Like, maybe you can get some kind of a card that goes along with it. I didn't have the surgery, but I look like a woman. Yet I'm biologically a male. And this way, and that's more or less for police officers. Like, listen, you give me a fake ID. You're not Joe Schmo. Like, no, I go by Beniqua. Like, well, Beniqua, this is Joe Blow's ID. Why do you have this? You don't look anything like this person, and this person's a male. Like, who are you trying to fool, right? And it's not. And for situations like that, having an update, but not changing a legal document, right? Like, I get it. Like, hey, legally, this child was signed up under this guy being the dad, and he just happened to be the guy in the room that said he would help take care of him, but it wasn't biologically the father. You have to update something like that. Yeah, I get it. But to start updating facts at the time, you know what I mean? Like, that's like if it's sad to say, if the baby were to have died, and you just say, well, the baby's alive in my mind, so let's edit the birth certificate, the death certificate to void it, to show that the baby's still alive. But the baby's, you know what I mean? Like, you're starting to get into a lot of lunacy here. And that's my rant for the day, boys and girls. Sorry to vent. I know I'm probably going to get some backlash on this one, just because it could be construed as insensitive, but I'm a very logical person. I I mean, I got an accounting degree and in finance and stuff like that. All that stuff is logical. If I had a science degree, no one would be bitching about it. Actually, probably lots of people would be bitching about it. But, I mean, I'm not trying to be insensitive towards people's rights. I want to be sensitive towards that. But when you start changing the fundamentals, like, hey, I'm a person who doesn't believe in... I'm a person who's not affected by gravity. Like, bullshit. You're affected by gravity. Everybody's affected by gravity. Everybody's affected by biologics. You can't start changing the rules of the game. You can change some of the details of your own life with addendums, but you're not going to start changing some of the rules of the game, because that's how people find loopholes for murder and other crap like that. I'm not on board with that shit. So, Life22 signing out, boys and girls. Thanks.